chair this session or this item. I will enjoy, of course, and I hope you will enjoy also. As we know, we are now at the item 3 of our agenda. This part of our session will address common challenges and emerging opportunities in development and implementation of PRTRs. Speaker will share experience related to their PRTR systems. The discussion could also address how to overcome common difficulties establishing PRTR system that is used for different purposes, including circular economy and sustainability. And with this in mind, I would like to invite our first speakers to the podium, namely Mr. Nebojša Ređić for EPA Serbia and Ms. Caitlin Breer from EPA United States of America. Please, welcome. And the first, our panelist is with presentation is our colleague, Mr. Nebojša Ređić.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to the Secretariat to get the opportunity to present our PRTR system in Serbia. Yesterday, I have a presentation about this. And next slide, please. What I need to say is this PRTR register, we have our environmental information system of the Republic of Serbia, and this register is part of this system. When we talk about PRTR register, we implemented capacity threshold, but we don't implement thresholds for releases. And all PRTR companies need to report all amounts of released pollutants. What is also very important, we have forms for raw materials consumption, fuel consumption, products, and technical data about the stocks. So we can use some models for using this data. Important thing is there is no confidentiality towards SEPA. SEPA take care about the confidentiality, so all data must be reported. When you look at the structure of National Register of Polluters, you can see there are PRTR, but we have emission to air, water, soil, which are not covered in PRTR. Waste management in a whole, so not only waste generation, we have complete system for waste management reporting. What is the difference with the National Register of Pollution Sources is in coverage of number of companies. On the right side, on this map, you can see our PRTR companies. Next slide, please. What we always look is how to improve our National Register of Pollution Sources information system, how to improve databases through the number of reports and quality of submitted data, and improvement of national and international reporting and availability of data to the public. Next. When we talk about improvement of our system, we use our old system 12 years, and we found last year that we need to change, and we expect that first data delivery will be on next year on 1st of January. What is very important, from 2023, there are no paper forms in agency. When we talk about improving databases, you can see this is a number of reports, and on the right picture you can see the number of reports from 2014, this light gray line, and 2023 is red, so we have around 2,000 reports more than last year. Every year we have over 32,000, I know today is 33,000 annual reports, and around 170,000 daily and occasional reports, and that's around 3.5 million data every year entered into information system. We have separate module where you can see that we have all information who sent and what didn't send to us. We have these tables are publicly available, so everybody can see who or not send the data. This is our module for data tracking, so every change of data in the system must be in this table. When we go to the court, on a criminal court, for not delivering the data, or the data are not correct, this is a main table, and our judges look at this, and so that's very important for us. This is our cockpit. Everything is here, and we can see all forms, all reports, all internal tables, and so what I don't said, our software is bilingual, English and Serbian. We are thinking how to increase the quality of submitted data, and we found that nobody read the guide documents. We have it, but nobody don't want to use it. And our companies now, we change and create new forms. They don't require, we don't ask companies to calculate anything. They need to enter only raw data from measurements, and all calculations are done by the information system automatically. So that makes our reports much better than in the previous years. We have a lot of national and international reports. Now we have 145, and we have our 4 reports about the waste. So, and what is very important is that we have this data from 2011. So we have 12 years in our IT system. We are also part of European Industrial Emission Portal on European Environmental Agency. So in a picture you can see our PRTR sites on their site, and what we've done is implementation of Decision 2022 regarding reporting on production volume. So we will have data for this year to send to EPRTR. When we talk about international reporting, this is everybody who send data to Eurostat. This is there. So we have data from 2018. This is our new SEPA site. So we are looking how to show all our data to public, and we don't like to ask to answer the questions according Aarhus Convention, so we want to give them all what we have available to the public. What we have also, we developed waste GIS, GIS, Geographic Information System. So when you touch the button from treatment of waste, you receive this dots where the recycling facilities are, waste treatment facilities located. And when you touch every of these dots, you receive this table about their work, how much, what kind of waste they received, how many they treat, and so on. But what I want to add for this is our project. Sorry, not our. This is project where we participate. This project is funded by Federal German Ministry of Environment and in partnership with Participatio company from Hungary and these REC companies in Montenegro and Albania and Bosnia. So what we do is prepare the universal software for PRTR. This software now is in, Agdi help me, in Bosnia, in Montenegro, in Albania, Kosovo, not in Albania. Okay, so this is registration portal where company add their data. When you go down about the facility registration, emission source registration, so this is everything according PRTR protocol. And we have now annual reports to emission to air, emission, yeah, that's emissions. Oh, whoa, whoa. Sorry, I don't know that's work. Emission to water. There are tables for chemicals in water and to enter. Emission to land. And waste production, according PRTR protocol, is inside. Here we have a report to EU Register of Industrial Sites and ePRTR LCP Register. So this is modules which are included in this software. Sorry. Second project is digital waste movement document. According Article 26 and 35 of Waste Framework Directive, there is necessary to establish waste movement document. We have it from 2013, and it's based on 6 paper copies. In our system, we have around 180 waste transport in the Republic of Serbia, so that's a 1 million list of paper per year. Our new system is based on application for data collection on servers and mobile application for smartphones. We prepared everything except coding, and as a first step, we are looking to secure funding for this and to develop of this software. What we want is real-time movement of any waste, and our mission is to provide a waste tracking service to everybody in as open data. The benefits: first, 0 paper copies of annual level and possible live tracking of waste when the waste is given by, for example, generator to transport. Directly in the system you will have this data and it will be available for the public or some state bodies who are interested in this. The other waste tracking system is in-house project. It is done, so we can track the waste in the past. So, for example, this green, this black, I don't want to see the name of the company, received the waste of these 2 companies, and when you click on this, you receive the they receive the waste from this, and you can look backward how tracking waste to the generator. For example, this is interesting. We are tracking about metals in demolition waste, and we found that this company collects 17,000 tons of this waste from persons, from physical persons. How they receive the waste from physical persons, we are now struggling, and maybe we will include the police in this to check with us together and make punishment for not good use of this ECV code, and maybe they make a mess with this waste. Okay, thank you for your attention. I'm probably not boring.
Thank you for this presentation. It was interesting to see how emission reporting system in Serbia is evolving. Now I invite Ms. Kathleen Brier to take the floor. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. All right, today I will be talking about a project that the U.S. led for the OECD Working Party on PRTR about using PRTR data to track progress towards SDG 12. This is a project that we first initiated back in 2017 with a proposal following the publication of the OECD framework on using PRTR data for tracking global sustainability. And I presented on this work at the last Global Roundtable in 2018. So it's exciting to be able to provide an update as well as a discussion of where we go from here. Next slide, please. So using PRTR information to evaluate progress towards the Sustainable Development Goal 12, analysis was published in November of 2021 by the OECD. The report includes data from 7 PRTR systems comprising 39 countries, because ePRTR is one of those 7, and 14 pollutants, 12 toxic chemicals and 2 atmospheric pollutants. The project used these data to assess progress towards Sustainable Development Goal Target 12.4, which says by 2020, achieve the environmentally sound management of chemicals and all wastes throughout their life cycle in accordance with agreed international frameworks and significantly reduce their release to air, water, and soil in order to minimize their adverse impacts on human health and the environment. The data we looked at for this project ranged from 2008 to 2017, and you can find this report on the OECD website at the link on this slide. For this analysis, we focused our attention on releases to air and to water from the manufacturing sector in order to conduct a most comprehensive analysis with comparable results across the PRTR systems. Slide, please. Thank you. The next few slides take a look at just some very high-level results that are in the report. For example, this is a trend from 2008 to 2017 of all 14 pollutants that were included in the analysis from all 7 PRTR systems. So you can see that from 2008 onward, there is a very strong downward trend. But something that we noted is that the atmospheric pollutants, particulate matter and sulfur oxides, are released and reported in such high quantities so as to really be the drivers of that trend, because their quantities far outweigh the releases of the toxic chemicals, which you can see, if you can distinguish the colors, the blue bars represent atmospheric pollutants and little red slivers at the top of the bars represent the toxic pollutants. Next slide, please. So drilling down to look just at the releases of the 12 toxic chemicals in the analysis, you can see that across the 7 PRTRs, there was a sharp decrease from 2008 to 2009, but since 2009, the decrease has been very, very gradual, if it's there at all. And this chart shows the breakdown by specific toxic pollutants, so you can see which ones make up the bulk of the reported releases. Next slide, please. And then this graph shows a comparison by PRTR system in their 2008 total of the pollutants versus their 2017 total. And you can see that 6 of 7 PRTRs had decreased releases of those pollutants. In 4 of them, the reported releases decreased by more than 50%. Much of the large difference in scale between the PRTR systems is because some of the PRTRs don't have data for the atmospheric pollutants, and since they're released in such large quantities, that really drives the scale of the graph that we can present it on. Next slide, please. And so there is a lot more in the report itself, and I would certainly encourage people to read it. In that report, we looked at not just absolute quantities of the reported releases, but also applied the use toxicity modeling data to look at human health toxicity and ecotoxicity, and as well as some economic information about the different PRTR systems to contextualize the release data. The project that resulted in that report also informed the development of the data visualization tool that is currently published on the OECD PRTR website, which is interactive and dynamic, and so users can filter for PRTR system, pollutant sectors, and look at the different results, including release quantities as well as toxicity-weighted release quantities. And so this is just a screenshot of that data visualization dashboard, but it is a really powerful tool, and that is something that we are continuing to update. The data on the visualization tool now go up through 2020, and we are working on adding 2021 and 2022, as well as adding 12 additional pollutants and data from the UK for 2021 and 2022 as a standalone PRTR system. This data visualization tool is something that we also hope to continue developing and expanding as discussion around PRTR's utility in the global framework on chemicals and other global conversations continues. The Sustainable Development Goal Analysis builds on previous PRTR work by both the OECD Working Party in their efforts towards harmonization across PRTR systems for both pollutants and chemical and sectors, and its development of the framework on the role of PRTR in global sustainability analysis that I mentioned. The U.S. Toxics Release Inventory also very much informed the work we did on this project. For example, TRI publishes the National Analysis, which is the EPA's official summary and interpretation of the annual TRI data each year. And our work with the National Analysis and how we present TRI data and moving very much towards visualization and interactivity really informed the visualization dashboard on the OECD website. We also, in the TRI program, are doing a lot of work in assessing the needs of different stakeholder groups and different data users, and what of the data that we have available is of use to different groups of people, whether it's researchers, academics, the general public, other governments. And so we have been doing a lot of work to cater to those different stakeholder groups and present the data in different ways so as to meet their unique needs. And that is another kind of approach to communicating PRTR data that helped inform the work on the SDG project as well. Next slide. And so moving forward, we hope to continue building on the SDG analysis. As I mentioned, we're leading an update on the data visualization dashboard to add more data and add more chemicals. We are, as I said, we're adding 12 pollutants to the dashboard that comprise 4 metals, 7 organics, and cyanides. We also plan to expand the analysis and the dashboard to support the global framework on chemicals, which is an ongoing conversation. We certainly agree with previous comments about the utility of PRTR data as an indicator to track progress towards certain of the GFC targets, and would fully support PRTR's inclusion in those indicators. We're working on adding the most recent data and new pollutants, and so other conversations we're having or other possibilities are if there are different pieces of data, different chemicals, different groups of chemicals that could be added to the dashboard to even more fully support the work on the GFCs and other international work. That's an ongoing conversation that we're looking forward to. So to sort of build on conversation had this morning, how can PRTR support the global framework on chemicals? Per the global framework, we understand that preferred indicators are already in use and are measurable, have enough data for a baseline, and have a custodian organization. PRTRs certainly seem like the best available source of data on chemical releases currently available as they're updated annually, and the data are already being consolidated internationally on the OECD PRTR dashboard, as well as other data consolidation resources. Next slide. And so certainly to sum up, PRTRs are relevant as indicators for many of the global framework targets. Draft indicators include the number of countries with a PRTR as an indicator for the targets listed here, as well as pollutants released to the environment. For example, target B3 states that by 2035, stakeholders generate data on the production of chemicals, including the use of chemicals in materials and products, in addition to data on emissions and releases of chemicals and waste to the environment, making these data available and publicly accessible. Which really could not be more tailored to PRTR if it tried. Next slide, please. And so just in summary, here are links to many of the resources that I mentioned in this presentation. And I hope that you explore them. Thank you so much.
Caitlin, thank you for information on these new and existing activities addressing global targets. And I have to say the data visualization dashboard is really nice and useful tool. Anybody who didn't check it by himself, please just do it. Now it's a part for questions and answers, for dialogue. Firstly, I would like to ask, maybe by myself, our colleague from Serbia. And I have one small question regarding your presentation. If I understand correctly, a National Register of Pollution Sources consists of many databases, for example, PRTR, air and water emission, waste management, even noise reporting. I wonder if and how, for example, PRTR system is connected with, for example, air emission database. What is connection in between, if it is any?
Sorry, once again, please.
So, as we saw on PowerPoint, National Register of Pollutant Sources, Serbia, consists of many databases.
Okay.
Am I right? For example, PRTR database, air emission and water emission database, the waste management database, and even noise reporting database. I just wonder if it is or how it is, for example, PRTR database connected with, for example, air emission database. If it is.
That's one database. Only the difference between PRTR companies and not PRTR companies is one flag. So all data are in the same database.
May I ask additional question?
Yes.
PRTR data is reported per companies.
Yes.
And air emission database is probably filled by monitoring.
Also from companies. Oh, sorry. No, emission data are all from companies.
I could see that there we have two flags. First it was a good association, and then is ERG. Please take the floor. Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe even Montenegro was the first. Sorry.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Gordana Đukanović. I'm working in Environmental Protection Agency of Montenegro. My question is for Mr. Nebojša Ređić. Nebojša, you mentioned the project which provides to Montenegro PRTR software. So Montenegro received this software, PRTR, and we have already some activities, and some companies have already entered their data for 2023. My question is, as always can be better, in which direction the existing software needs to be improved? Thank you.
I don't understand. I don't hear you.
My question is about the PRTR software that you mentioned during your presentation that was provided with the project. So my question is, in which direction, if you think that there is a space, this existing software needs to be improved? If you think that there is space for improvement.
Thank you for your question. There are a lot of things which can be added in this software, but my opinion is that we need to establish a better reporting part to have now you can send only data to EU register, but there are a lot of data which can be used for national or other international reporting, including Eurostat reporting, which is very detailed and not easy to establish. But we in Serbia have a whole system for reporting for Eurostat.
Montenegro, was this all?
Yes, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Now we have Mia. Please take the floor.
Good afternoon. My name is Azemina Shakiri. I work in the Ministry of Environment and Physical Planning of North Macedonia. My question goes to Serbia. As far as I saw in the presentation, Nebojša has presented the recent developments of the Serbian information system. So North Macedonia might be interested on this software. So my question would be, how is it possible to get this software? Thank you.
I know this company who prepared this, and you can talk with them. Maybe Magdi is a much better source for this information about who prepared this software and how to get it.
Now we have a good association. Please, Magdi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I'm speaking not on behalf of the Guta Environmental Law Association about this project, because this project is implemented by a company called Participatio Ltd, and I'm the project manager of this project. But I'm very grateful for Nebojša that he mentioned all this, and really it has been a great help that the experience of SEPA in Serbia was used throughout the project, even when the software was developed. And this, as he said, it is a software used by 3 countries, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Kosovo. And why I'm saying it, and it was developed by GIS Solutions. Unfortunately, the expert couldn't come due to health reasons. He was supposed to come because he has interest to listen to all these meetings today and Friday. Because this is a software for 3 countries, it is very difficult. It was difficult to adapt to the individual needs of the countries. And obviously, it is the first step. So the basic modules for reporting according to the requirements of the PRTR protocol and EPR-LCP, integrated reporting, it is possible now with the use of this software. I also should add that among the 3 countries there are differences how much operable and usable at the moment is the software, because in some, for example, in Kosovo, they have still some bureaucratic obstacles before it can go publicly available. But all the 3 countries have the application for the register for the operators for online reporting, and also web platforms are developed or will be developed, because not all of them are developed yet, through which the application and other information will be also shown. So my response, I wanted to ask a question to Nebojša, but of course there is a lot of room to improve this software, and because it's a modular approach, it has the space to additional modules to be added and developed. And of course, just to add, sorry for being so long, the countries themselves, the parties, could take the initiative and also improve the register according to their national needs. Because, as I said, it's more of a general nature at the moment. And my question, if I may have a question, and we have time, to Mr. Nebojša, is about whether Serbia has already started to plan how the new European Union requirements will be implemented through the register, as this will be also of interest to all the other countries in the region who also would like to go on that path. So if you could answer, Nebojša. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Magdi. We start with the development of new modules which are covered EU register and EPRTR LCP integrated reporting. First, what we done is sorry, implementation of regulation 2022/1024 according to products in PRTR. I need to say that we have this module more than 10 years in our system, but it's slightly different. So we will continue change our system according EU requirements during new regulation established in EU. So this there is one regulation which appeal Directive 166/2016 and developed a new ID portal, information system, new reporting. So that's we will check what they do and follow them in their work.
Bisha. Now we have a plate from Eastern Research Group. Please take the floor.
Thank you. If I followed correctly, I think you were saying facilities used to calculate their emissions in the past, but you've made a recent change where they submit the underlying data and you do the calculations. You were saying they just weren't looking at the guidance and there was inconsistencies. So I was curious, when that change occurred from facilities calculating to the PRTR, the government calculating, what kind of changes did you see? Like, was there general under-reporting in the past or over-reporting, or was it really mixed? Have you noticed how that's changed the data?
As I said, the companies don't need to calculate. We found that they don't know, they don't want to follow the guidance. Maybe they don't want to give the right data, because what I didn't said yesterday and today, our system for PRTR is connected with the taxation for pollution paid principle. So companies don't want to send right data to have a less payment. And on the other hand, recyclers or other who receive this payment give the bigger, higher data to get more money. So we are struggling how to do that, and we don't ask them to calculate, we don't ask anything. We do that for them, but I think that data became much better, and how to say, they have a better time series than in previous years.
If there is no question more, I would like to thank you, our panelists, and thank also the colleagues for question. It was interesting for all, I think. Thanks. Now we have the second group. The second group, and this is Mr. Matias Vergara from Ministry of Environment, Chile, and Ms. Margareta Kitsia from European Commission, from European Union. Please come with us and take your nameplate with you. first presentation we'll have when he is ready, Matthias, and then Gosha.
Hello, my name is Matías Vergara Herrera. I am in charge of data analysis, data processing in the Department of Environmental Information in the Ministry for the Environment in Chile. Before starting my presentation, I would like to thank the UNEC for their support for our participation in this PRTR week here in Geneva. Next slide, please. So that being said, I would like to present you today an overview of our current state of the PRTR in Chile, some contextual variables of its development, and some further also development of our PRTR. Next slide, please. Well, this presentation marks a special event in our PRTR operation in Chile. We're turning it's the 20th anniversary of our PRTR. And over the course of its development, we have achieved significant milestones that have shaped somehow the implementation of the PRTR initiative in our country. The timeline that I'm sharing with you has been developed for internal clarity. I'm sharing them with the same purpose. We have identified in this timeline 3 different phases. The first phase, as we call it the phase 0, involves the establishment of the regulatory and the government's framework that was made possible through the international support from UNITAR and Canada. The following phase, the phase 1, is characterized by an operational improvement, notably the integration of the data collection into a single window system and the use of the PRTR data to support the implementation of the green taxation in Chile. Currently, where we are visualizing the entrance in a new phase, phase 2. The major projects relating to phase 2 are in line with updating the PRTR regulation and advancing information technologies to enhance our work to meet the requirements set forth by the Escazú agreement. Next slide, please. Now, before moving into specifics, I also want to provide more practical context of our operation. So the PRTR is located in the Department of Environmental Information, and the 3 major outputs of our PRTR are linked as follows. So one of the major outputs of information of the PRTR system in Chile is towards reporting obligations to international agreements. Another important output of information is the integration of the PRTR with public policy, specifically the green taxation system again, some indicators for circular economy, and recently public baseline of environmental information. And lastly, as shown in this somehow simplified diagram, the PRTR, RETSE as we call it in Spanish, serve also as a crucial input for the generation of environmental information within the National Environmental Information System, the SINIA. In these systems, the PRTR data is integrated with other sources of information. Next slide, please. Now, having put some general context on the table, I want to share with you some specific characteristic of our PRTR. So, again, going a little bit back to the timeline. Another slide. So one of the specific characteristics of our PRTR is regulation. So the origin of the PRTR is linked to the Ley General del Medio Ambiente, which is translated into the Environmental Framework Law. Is a general law that regulates the environmental institution in Chile. That's the origin of the PRTR. Then it has a more operational aspect into a specific decree, and this specific decree links somehow the operation of the PRTR toward all to others environmental compliances that are not that may or may not be in the environmental institutional framework. That poses somehow a governance challenge to the PRTR, which is then solved by the specific regulation that somehow, again, regulates the operation of the PRTR. We solve this in following this diagram. So this regulation creates a national coordination group, which then allows to build this kind of governance to build the register every year. Going a little bit further and into deepness with this governance, I want to share with you somehow an approach to our yearly work. As mentioned before, the creation of the single window system is a milestone in the development of our PRTR, because every year, during the first semester of every year, our systems are open to declaration. We have a big task in data quality because we have in the single window system around 46,000 establishments. Every year, by the end of the first semester, the declaration process is closed, and then we have an affidavit which aims to bring transparency and also a certain layer of data quality to the building of the register. Once the affidavit is done, then we go into data management and process analysis to detect somehow outliers in our data, which then concludes that work with the creation of the register. Now, at present, we have identified the opportunity to optimize this workflow by breaking down the process into 3 modular units that are focused in 3 main areas. So we have identified an area which will focus on data capturing and environmental register. The idea is to improve in this unit the collection of information, capturing data, systematizing data, and so on. There is another area of work which is data management, which strategic goal would be to be able to produce reliable information, so the quality data agenda being pushed forward. And finally, the information management area, which basically will work with consolidated data over time, analyzing new needs of information, and generating, in general, environmental data for public policy and enhancing environmental information in general. We already are doing this, but we hope that by building these areas of work, we will make the workflow more efficient and focus, ultimately bringing more effectiveness to our work. Next slide. Thank you. Now, what are more or less the specific outputs in terms of information of our PRTR? So one of them is the PRTR management. So every year we publish our data, the spreadsheets of all register in an open data website that is available to all the public. There is another input of information relating public policy. Specifically here, we're talking again about green taxation, measurement of SDG goals, air quality norms, and so on. And finally, a more citizen kind of like output of information, specifically linked towards the ESCASU agreement, which is environmental report that are more elaborated towards the public in general. Now, let me share with you, after these 20 years of development, some experience and best practices that with my team we think that may contribute to the conversation. So first of all, a characteristic that I think that is relevant to the PRTR in Chile is its integration in the environmental institutional framework, in the sense that Chile have prioritized aligning the existing environmental governance structure toward the building of the PRTR. The integration of the PRTR into the environmental institution has ensured somehow an agenda of data coherence and efficiency. Another highlight that I would also want to mention is the creation of a unified environmental reporting system, specifically the single window system. This has ensured for us the ability to systematize the data and standardize it is an important duty, specifically for me, that since I work with the data, to being able to compare and process in a way that all the data is usable. Second, we stress the need to focus on data quality. It's an agenda that we are being pushing forward also during the time of the implementation of the PRTR, and specifically now, since we are considering the using of the data. We also, point 4, we have learned not to underestimate the importance of robust and adaptable IT systems. Technologies are a backbone of our data management efforts and are critical for capturing, processing, and disseminating information effectively. We also encourage a user-centric approach toward PRTR data. This is also specific for us, but the ESCASU agreement asks us to bring the data accessibility forward. And finally, we invite to learn from global experiences. Participating in this event is as being a benefit. We have benefit from participating in this type of event, from the transfer of resources to the expertise from countries with well-established PRTR systems. International collaboration has helped us to refine our approach and adopt proven practices as well. So, more or less, to wrap up, the development of the PRTR after these 20 years reflect a dedicated work that is aimed to providing more transparency to environmental information and making data also more accessible and actionable. As we enter in this new phase, as we call it, phase 2, we are looking forward to refining our approach to the PRTR to enhance the data quality and ensuring, of course, that our efforts are translated into meaningful environmental policy and public awareness. So we are open to dialogue and collaboration, and we thank everyone for their contributions. Thank you.
Thank you for presentation. It was really interesting to see development of PRTR system in Chile. Now we give floor to Gosha, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Małgorzata Zakicia, the European Commission, DG Environment, unit dealing with industrial emissions and safety. I'll be talking about how our new regulation, Industrial Emissions Portal Regulation, how it supports EU policy objectives, how it integrates with other EU policy objectives, and also how it facilitates a better way of monitoring sustainable development goals. Next slide. So we start the presentation with a short background here. We are now in a transition period because until 2027, the industrial operators will be reporting under the EPRTR, well known to you, adopted in 2006. I will not quote what it does because I guess it was presented on this forum, at this forum already several times. So with the new regulation, as from 2028, the reporting will be done in a modernized way. We modernized our PRTR following broad evaluation and broad stakeholders consultations. And what we wanted to do is to match the scope of the new regulation and align reporting requirements with permitting conditions under the Industrial Emissions Directive. Then we wanted to maximize the portal's value in line with the Commission's simplification and better regulation rules report once used several times. So here it's a clear simplification agenda behind. And also what we did, we also wanted to update the list of pollutants. We introduced a mechanism to make this list of pollutants Annex 2 more dynamic, and with the revision, we introduced 3 new substances. So next to 91 reported currently, there will be 3 more, 2 from PFAS group and Decofol. Next slide, please. So here a few insights on what changed. You saw this slide already, I believe. We have a new interface, more user-friendly, so you can click on the installation, see what happens as regards environmental impacts. You can also click next time, and then you see administrative data. We introduced change in the reporting level. So currently, so far reporting on the facility level as is now happening under the Kiev Protocol. We will be requesting operators to report on the installation level to be closer to the emission source. Then several other changes linked to expanded reporting, reporting on resource use. So the operators will be reporting on energy, water, and relevant raw materials, and also will be providing us contextual information, so number of operating hours and production volume. Another element is aligning the scope of the regulation with the scope of the Industrial Emissions Directive, and here we have new sectors under the European PRTR, and maybe here a few words on that, because alignment with the IED of course broadened the portal's coverage, and we are now working on practical arrangements to facilitate reporting for dispersed installations, such as, for example, aquaculture and livestock. This is because they often may have little capacity and resources to dedicated to reporting on pollutant releases and transfers, but together they constitute a big source for pollution. So what we propose in the revision is to give the member states, the national authorities, possibility to report on behalf of those installations, aquaculture and livestock, on the basis of calculations, including emission factors per abatement technology. Then the changes also cover, as I said, more dynamic way of changing the Annex 2, the list of pollutants, and the sectors. As regards the sectors, maybe here I would refer to the presentation we heard in the morning. I wanted to say a few words about desalination, because there was on the slide there was a question whether the desalination sector could enter into the EPRTR. So there is a possibility to change Annex 1 in EPRTR, but only if there are changes in the Kiev Protocol. So the link is here in the European law, clear with the Kiev Protocol. So as soon as the Kiev Protocol will capture desalination, it will give us a chance to change the European provisions. Then thinking about harmonization of data and quality of data, hierarchy of quantification, measure, calculate, and only if not possible, the operators would estimate the emissions, the releases, and we'll be asking the operators to actively confirm that emissions, that releases are below the threshold. Currently, we don't know whether there are any emissions or not. Now we will know that there is emission, but it's below the threshold. So next slide, please. And with this one, I would dive into a bit more detail. And a few words on SDGs monitoring, how the European regulation facilitates it. The general objective of the regulation is to identify and monitor sources of pollution. So we will this way contribute to prevention and reduction. So here we have a clear links. We have releases of pollutants to water, air, and land. So clear link to SDGs that capture, for example, clean water sanitation, clean energy, or life underwater, life on land. So this is clear, and this has been discussed and captured by the OECD and the USA and American work. What we did through introducing reporting on resource use, water, energy, and relevant raw materials, when you take it together with contextual information, so production volume, operating hours, you'll be able to monitor progress towards circular and resource efficient economy. So it gives us another angle to look at SDG, for example, SDG 12, so production, responsible production and consumption, to SDG 13 on climate, or even 7 or 9, those dealing with industry, innovation, and energy. So we are getting a new angle here, and this will happen as from 2028. Next slide, please. And a few words, next two slides will be about the list of pollutants, Annex 2, where, as I said, we introduced this dynamic, where we introduced criteria, clear criteria when this list of pollutants can be changed. So those criteria are meant to increase coherence across policies. So they are linked to changes in the European thematic legislation, first on chemicals, then on air quality, and finally on water. So as regards chemicals, we have the REACH regulation. REACH stands for registration, evaluation, authorization, and restriction of chemicals. So if the pollutant is designated under this regulation as a substance of very high concern, so because of potential harm to human health or environment, or a pollutant is covered by the restriction on manufacture due to its potent toxicity, bioaccumulative properties, it will be a candidate to appear in the Annex 2. On air quality, we have two legal acts, Heavy Metals in Ambient Air Directive and Air Quality Directive. If the pollutant is subject to limit values or other restrictions under those two legal acts, it will also, it may also be captured by Annex 2. This is all happening in cooperation with the member states and the stakeholders. It's not that the Commission is just coming up with a new list and that it's happening. It's a whole consulted cooperative process with the member states, stakeholders, NGOs. So this is a joint decision here. And maybe I should say here a few words on the EU legislation, because we are now reviewing part of the environmental acquis, and this is very much in view what's happening on the international agenda. So what's happening under the Stockholm, Basel, and all the international conventions that are dealing with chemicals. So indirectly we will be capturing the pollutants that are covered by the international conventions. The last slide on Annex 2, the next one please, Chris, it's about water. So here we have 4 legal acts that are making the criteria for changes in Annex 2. So if the pollutant is designated as priority substance or in the watch list, or it's subject to limit values under those legal acts that you see on the slide, it will be also considered for the Annex 2. Next slide, please. A few words on maximizing portal's value for users, because the portal will also include links to existing publicly available data resources that capture data on climate change, air quality, water, land protection, waste management. So here the user will be able to direct themselves to relevant, interesting data. And also the portal is, the European Industrial Emissions Portal is designed in such a way to facilitate future integration with other relevant environmental data flows. So this is something really for the future. My last 2 slides, the next one is going a bit beyond the environmental acquis. And this is something very interesting because so far the PRTR data were usually used for researchers, for academia, but now with a new legal framework on sustainable finance, on green finance, there's a big interest from the financial sector and from investment sector towards the portal data, because according to new legislation, big public companies and employing more than 500 employees, there are certain criteria to define those big companies. They will have to, as part of the yearly financial reporting, they will have to report on impact on environment. So there will be the sustainability reporting obligation, and here the data will be referenced to the PRTR portal, which shows, but this is also thanks to high quality of the data that the European portal provides, thanks to the national authorities' quality checks, and thanks to the European Environment Agency quality assessment. And then another angle where the PRT data is used is the taxonomy regulation. This is a framework that aims at fighting greenwashing. So if the company wants to be seen as sustainable green, it needs to meet certain criteria. So this criteria also refers to PRTR, to the PRTR data. So clear added value of the data and high usage of the data. Finally, you'll hear from Chillard in the afternoon how he used the PRT data to analyze, to do research on biodiversity impacts. We use the PRT data to support, for example, health policy. You heard yesterday from Juan from the Environmental Agency about the analysis of trends of costs to health, environment, from industrial emissions to air. The agency also prepared a very interesting report on environmental pressures of heavy metal releases, mercury captured there. And this data from PRTR serves the European Commission to monitor progress towards zero pollution. We have several indicators under this framework. My final slide, what happens next? This is a lot of work will be now on the agenda. By the end of this year, we'll be issuing the guidelines on what are sites, facilities, and installations. It could be of interest of the group of the parties to the Kiev Protocol, because these guidelines will be supported by graphics, by examples per sector. So this is something work on quite advanced, should be ready by the end of the year. We wanted to do it because we changed the reporting level. So this was very much needed by the EU member states, national authorities, and the operators. This work is done in cooperation with the stakeholders and with the member states. Then by the end of 2025, we'll be quite busy with another set of guidelines, so reporting procedures, because we have new provisions, we have new sectors, new quality assurance aspects, confidentiality aspects linked to reporting on raw materials, for example. We'll be working on methods facilitating analysis and reporting on PFAS, and also establishing guidance on simplified reporting for livestock production and aquaculture. We'll also work on relevant raw materials, what they are per sector, because each sector will have different raw materials to be reported, different weight of those materials. We will be discussing unit metrics, how it should be reported, and finally, a big chunk of work on Annex 2 revision. We'll need to finalize it by 2025. We'll revise the list of pollutants and the thresholds, because with the change of the reporting level from facility, a big one, going a bit lower, we'll need to look into the thresholds to capture everything we capture now, and also because of the progress in environmental protection, we see that we do not really see much of what's happening on the operators level. This is all from me. I'm happy to have any questions from you. Thank you very much.
Well, I will now open the floor for question, and I will just take my, the position and ask you first two questions. So, first question is for Matthias. He said that PRTR system in Chile is used also for green taxation. I just wonder which chemical or chemicals are used for this taxation, and how do you control that operator report correct data used for that taxation? A little bit more difficult question, I think, for Gosha. Listen me, please. Reporting thresholds in new regulation are actually the same as they were in European Pollution Emission Register, or IPER. IPER was issued in EU official journal in July 2000. From year 2000 to year 2024, so till now, EU industry received two series of BREF documents which significantly lowered emission limit values from their start at the beginning of this century to now. I wonder, when will EU adopt new PRTR emission threshold levels, which will be more near to possibilities which industry have regarding their mass flows or yearly mass flows? Thanks.
Interesting question about the integration of PRTR to green taxation. So there are, so the pollutants are taxated are CO2, SO2, CO2, particulate material, and NOx. And the integration, so the PRTR is not the only tool that is used to create the green taxation system, right? So it's like the starting point to the process of evaluating the companies that need to pay the green taxation. So, as to start, the PRTR analyzes which companies are emitting the major volumes of emissions, and then that information is sent to the fiscalizer, to the which then goes specifically to each facilities to measure the amount of emissions generated. and with that amount, they create the taxation. So with the PRTR, we say that it speaks about the universe that should be part of the taxation, and then the universe is shrink by the capacities and the guidelines of the fiscal entity. And then a good thing happen for us, for the PRTR operation, which is that data, that measurement, then comes back to the PRTR and it replaces the estimation that we do in our system, in the sense that to improve the data quality of the register, basically.
Shall I? It's a hard one, yeah. It's really because it's extremely difficult to establish the thresholds, in particular when we have now in the regulation the provision that the goal is to capture at least 90% of the releases, which is really now it becomes the law, which we are always aiming at those 90%, but it's never been provided by the legal act. So we now have it in our regulation, 90% of the releases of each pollutants. And it's really difficult to do so. So this is one thing that we need to look into when revising the thresholds. Second thing, as I said, changing the reporting level from facility when you have a chunk of, well, several installations reporting summed up, and now you go down to installation. We also need to look at the thresholds from this angle, so this is really important to do so. The Commission also has a mandate to look into potential thresholds of zero for particularly highly hazardous substances. So this is also on the agenda. We are working on it now. Only 2 weeks ago, I guess, we presented first thinking how we see the new thresholds. We presented them to the member states during the expert group meeting to discuss the first methodology issues and first potential way of approaching this aspect. It should be ready by the end of the next year. So, but it's extremely difficult exercise.
Colleagues, we have some question for our colleague. We have, of course. First was EAB, I think. No? Lady in blue?
Thank you.
There is Public Awareness and Monitoring Center.
Yes,
it was
thank you.
the first, so please take a floor.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Matthias. Thank you for your presentation, the milestones that CHILE has achieved thanks to implementing PRTR systems, specifically the single window system, and its way of organizing the data analysis are wonderful in my opinion. When speaking of data analysis, you mentioned how the data is collected during the first semester of the year, and later during the year it is analyzed. So just to clarify if I understood you correctly, does that mean that you don't usually collect data during the later parts of the year and just focus on analyzing it instead?
Correct. So the major analysis doing in the second part of the year is basically time series and checking that potential outliers in our data and so on. But as I said, we have a lot of establishments, so the amount of work required to analyze the data is in correlation with that 6 months of analysis.
We have EAB.
Thanks very much. I have a question, well, tricky one maybe, to Gosha. Thanks very much. I mean, I think one of the very useful added values and changes under the IPR discussion is that in the future we will have also information on consumption of energy, water, and raw materials. And my question is that also there's a requirement to, allow the contextualization of the data reported, which is a bit of a new concept and not really clearly defined on what this actually means. But will there be some further exchange in relation to that topic, by when? And also, there's this new product-specific reporting information flow coming in through the digital product passport under the eco-design for sustainable products. And whether you have some insights on by when the Commission will present the first set of digital product passports. I've heard that the steel is one of the first to come, the steel products. And as you know, the steel footprint comes from the production phase. Like, it's not really much in the use phase, but rather on the production phase. And whether the DG Environment Services will interact very closely with GRC, I think, who are developing the standards, to make sure that the data requirements interoperate with the PRTR system. So to bridge the product elements with, the point source elements. You see what I mean? That's one point. And then also, I mean, as you know, we very strongly insist to get the BAT link, the best available technique link. So the data is there, it's not being used. We have annual compliance reports done by the member states. They have it, helped by them. The operators are filling it out. Whether we can also look at how we can optimize the data use for compliance promotion and BAT uptake. Because at the end of the day, this is what really matters. I mean, to reduce pollution at the source, and a given pollution situation as it is largely driven by the allowance of pollution set in the permit. So the link is quite evident. And for the moment, we don't see the link in the PRTR at least. If you personally think we should make this link happen, or if there are ideas to make that happen very soon, would be very appreciated. Thank you.
Forget, so I try to take them. Thanks a lot, Christian. Maybe I'll start with the last one. Yeah, this is very, very tempting to have this compliance mechanism. You have a permit, and you check with a portal whether the permit's conditions are met. But you know very well this is very difficult. We've done this exercise for large combustion plants, and this is a straightforward technological process. You burn something goes out, and that's it. It's much more difficult for more complicated economic activities, and I don't see it working at this stage. We're not ready for that to have this benchmarking. Second question on digital passport. I can't say much here because I don't know really. But what I want to say, working on the industrial emissions portal, one of the objectives is to promote the portal data, and this is something we do all the time. So we're making an effort to make this data reported by the industry to feed into the digital passport, to feed into the whole reporting system. So this is as regards to question number 2. And question number 1, contextual data. Already now, from this year, first time, economic operators report on production volume. We see the data coming. It was, I must say, quite a difficult exercise after a number of workshops and discussions with the member states, but this is happening now. So we have it in the law now, and what we added is the operating hours. So this will be part of the guidelines that will be issued next year, so more data will come. And before, of course, issuing any guidance, we'll have an expert group meeting with the stakeholders, so we will be discussing it all together. Thank you.
Forum Zenica, please take the floor.
In regards of the new industrial emissions directive, which will include the livestock emissions, I'm wondering who is going to develop the methodology to measure the livestock emissions, because they are mostly fugitive, so it's quite a challenge to measure them properly. It's okay if we measure the emissions from the burning the biogas, that's okay, but from the livestock emissions are much more than that. So will public be included, public participation will be enabled in developing these methodologies, how to measure the livestock emissions? Thank you.
Stock under the Industrial Emissions Directive is nothing new. We changed only the thresholds, so we capture the biggest farms, really. So this has been in place already. And currently, my colleagues dealing with the Industrial Emissions Directive, they are working on the point that you mentioned, and will be also working on guidelines how to do the simplified reporting on livestock emissions. I saw very good guidelines that were produced by the Spanish authorities in this respect. So there is already knowledge. It's nothing new, and we'll be working in cooperation with the member states who have experience in reporting from livestock sector to develop them. And I think, well, people fly to the moon, so I think we can manage with livestock emissions. So.
There's no consensus for the moon, but but anyway, yes, we agree with you, of course, that livestock emissions are not measured; they are calculated. Ordinarily in Europe, we use CLR TAP system. Our colleagues Nebojša from Serbia explained this yesterday. I think you could talk in the at the coffee break. It could be useful. And now we have a question from UNEP MEP. Please, take the floor. Please.
A tricky aspect of emissions from livestock would be emissions to water. So this is something we will be working on next year, emissions to water. This will be really tricky. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, and I would like to thank the European Commission for the presentation. I'm very happy to see the progress and the intent to increase more data collection by reducing some thresholds. This is very much appreciated, and we are looking forward to have the first set of data. I have 3 questions, very quick one. I saw that you are also mentioning that the installations will report with the Water Framework Directive, water quality regulations in one of your slides. Can we go back to this slide, or maybe I misunderstood? But also, there was one directive which we are very much involved. It is the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. So I didn't see here, after this slide, I assume, one more. It was before. So just I asked the question, yes, is there any particular reason that we are also not looking to the good, we are looking to the good ecological status, but not good environmental status, which is more on marine side? Or is there any consideration to add it in the future? This is my first question. Second question is that, what is the prospect of what is the plan for implementation? Do you foresee any transitional period in meantime? Second question, and also we would like to, express our happiness that, of course, we are going to have more data on livestock and aquaculture. And also, I would like to also refer to the UNEA Resolution 5/2, which is the sustainable nutrient management. And we are looking forward to see the nutrient releases, especially to the water, that we can also look at when we are doing the assessment report. So the third question is, did you also take into consideration this sustainable nutrient management resolution, or would it be also suitable for us to retrieve data for this purpose? Thank you very much.
On links with the water legislation, I think it's a misunderstanding here, because this is about Annex 2, which is a list of pollutants. So we can only change this list. The Commission has a mandate to change Annex 2, the list of pollutants, if certain pollutant is listed in the legislation that I mentioned. So there are 2 legal acts under Water Acquis, one of them being Water Framework Directive. So it's a closed list. So this is what came as a result of the negotiations between the Commission, the European Parliament, and the European member states. So this is it. Maybe I think it was a misunderstanding. So Marine Framework Directive was not in the scope. As regards the question on prospects of implementation, the first reporting under the new regulation will happen in 2028. So we have 3 years. We are working on implementation rules now, so this will be ready by the end of next year. So the member states are aware of that. They are consulted as in the context of the work with the expert groups. So this is what we have in the regulation now. And on reporting on livestock aquaculture, this will be part of the guidelines that are under development next year. So I, of course, took your point, and I will take care to see to the aspect that you mentioned, to the UNER resolution. Yeah, thank you.
For short time we see a plate from zero discharge. Was this still the question? Or lady have a question?
I didn't have my hand up, but I do have a question. So my question is related to, has been mentioned a couple of times. I'm Barbara Cruz from the ZDHC program. I'll talk more about it tomorrow. It's for the European Commission. How does the initiatives around PRPR relate with the European Sustainability Reporting Standard, which is the framework for data that is underpinning CSRD, CSDDD, and a lot of new directives that are coming up in the new EU deal for 2030? And are you looking into aligning the data frameworks? Thank you.
With our legislation, with the portal regulation, so we do have it already. So this data will be used as part of the reporting stream under the framework that you mentioned.
More question on the floor? If not, we could have a coffee break till 5 or 5:10? 5:10?
We can come earlier.
So, 5 and 5 minutes. It's okay? No?
No, it's 5.
5 is enough, half an hour, so 5:00. Please, come back. I'm sorry for my trying to negotiate more time. Short or half an hour long coffee break. So we will now start with our third panel. So I will invite Mr. Pascal Roberge from EPA Canada, and we have pre-recorded a video statement from by Ms. Alicia Bertiam, Environment and Climate Change Canada, and I invite also Mr. Jindrich Peterlik from Toxic and Waste Program Arnica. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present. My name is Pascal Roberge. I'm the director of the National Pollutant Release Inventory in Canada. And this presentation shares Canada experience in addressing global targets using the segment of data that the National Pollutant Release Inventory collects and transfers and disposals. And challenges and opportunities will be presented. So the presenter, Alicia Bertium, is a researcher within the NPRI program, so it will be recorded.
I'm Alicia Berthium from Environment and Climate Change Canada, where I work on the National Pollutant Release Inventory, or NPRI, which is Canada's PRTR. My talk today will present an overview of how NPRI data on pollutants and waste can be used to measure progress towards Sustainable Development Goal 12, or SDG 12, which is about ensuring responsible production and consumption. And just before I start, I'd like to note that this work has recently been published as 3 separate research papers, so if I go too fast today, not to worry, the full story is accessible through those. First, a bit of background on the NPRI. It is Canada's national PRTR, and it's administered by Environment and Climate Change Canada under the Canadian Environmental Protection Act. There are currently over 300 substances on the NPRI at various reporting thresholds, and in recent years, roughly 7,000 facilities report to NPRI each year. The figure on the right here describes the categories of data that the NPRI collects, and I'll just draw your attention to the fact that NPRI also collects information on the offsite destination locations for transfers. So we can use that to see where waste is going. And of course, all the data is publicly accessible, and here are a few links. And while the term sustainability can mean a lot of things in a lot of contexts, for today's talk, when I say it, I mean the sound management of chemicals and waste. And that's leveraged from the SDG 12, which I'll paraphrase here by saying, while chemicals play an important part in modern society, their sound management means they're produced and consumed in ways that minimize their release to air, water, land, and waste, and thus minimize adverse impacts on the environment and human health. And with this definition, it's clear that NPRI and other PRTRs with their data on chemical releases to air, water, land, and waste are a good fit as indicators of sustainability, especially for SDG 12. However, here we have the official indicators for SDG 12, and so you'll note for indicator 12.4, there are no direct or absolute measurements of chemical releases and waste quantities, nor their environmental or human impacts. Instead, the focus is on the number of parties that report information prescribed by the international multilateral agreements listed here, and nothing about the content of those reports. So there's a gap in information between how many parties report versus the content of what's been reported. And PRTRs can help fill that gap. Indeed, as you surely know, the OECD has established a framework for using PRTRs in sustainability analysis, and that's covered by the 3 publications at right here. And so we can see using this conceptual framework at left that the NPRI can inform snapshots and trends of chemical releases and their movement in waste towards being able to conduct more sophisticated analysis, such as characterizing transboundary movement of pollutants, evaluating environmental policy performance, among others. But despite this clear role in the availability of PRTR data, we found in Canada that research efforts so far have mainly focused on air and water data, whereas data on transfers and disposals has rarely been used. And we know this thanks to a literature review that identified who's using NPRI and how over the last 25 years, and this gap showed up. So this project is about seizing some of those opportunities and addressing that gap. So the work had 2 objectives. The first was to produce a basic characterization of what's in the transfer and disposal dataset, really just to raise awareness of what's there, but also to set the stage for using the data to see what it can tell us about, what NPRI can tell us about SDG 12 progress. And so for part 1 in the basic characterization, one of the main novel aspects of this characterization was the creation of route maps between the facility of origin and the destination of offsite transfers. This type of information, like I mentioned before, has been collected by the NPRI over time, but it hasn't been well used. And so now by mapping it, we're trying to make it much more usable. For example, this slide shows where all of the offsite recycling has gone in the last 10 years. So it's broken down by recycling subtype. And you can see fairly easily at a glance that certain types of recycling transfers go to multi-continental destinations. So for example, recovery of acids and bases and recovery of metals. But for the most part, these appear to stay within North America, if not within Canada. So NPRI is currently working on a public dashboard of this information, but in the meantime, there is a prototype available at the link shown here. For part 2 of this work, I wanted to show how NPRI transfers and disposal data could be used in more advanced SDG analysis. So in the paper, I discussed 2 international agreements named in the official SDG 12 indicator, namely the Basel Convention and the Minamatic Convention, to see how NPRI could provide insights into transboundary movement of pollutants and waste, and thus the performance of these environmental policies. But in the interest of time, I'll only present one case study on the Basel Convention, which generally has the aim to minimize the generation of hazardous waste, prevent the international movement of waste to waste havens, which are less developed countries that don't have the regs or capacity to manage hazardous waste soundly, and third, to ensure that waste is kept as close as possible to the source, keeping in mind the need for environmentally sound disposal. So per the official SDG 12, 6.4 indicator, which as you recall tracks the reporting compliance of member parties, Canada has a record of 100% compliance. So by that indicator, sustainability is fully on track. However, there's a more nuanced story to be told here. Something to note is that while Canada, like other Basel members, implements regulations that systematically track information on the movement of waste, this data isn't publicly accessible, and it only tracks movement of waste by class. So a view of the cross-border movements of pollutants themselves is not possible through these manifests. Such a view is possible through PRTR data though, and so here I looked at all of the transboundary pollutant movements in the NPRI over 2013 to 2022, and I found a few useful insights shown in the figure here. For example, of the 19 nations receiving industrial pollutants and waste from Canada over the last 10 years, all are Basel compliant, meaning these transfers are going to Basel member countries, which are in orange, or the US, which is in blue, who's not a Basel member country, but with whom there is a bilateral agreement, so it's Basel compliant nonetheless, and meaning that according to the NPRI, no industrial pollutants and waste are going to waste havens. So that's good. That means the Basel Convention is working on that point, and the NPRI can show it. Another point is that the NPRI data show increasing trends over recent years in quantities of pollutants and waste transferred internationally. This insight suggests that the Convention's aim of minimizing transboundary hazardous waste volume hasn't transpired. And a third insight is that while the Basel Convention aims to keep waste closest to its source, so within the country of origin, if it can be disposed of soundly, of the 23 substances being transferred internationally to Basel members, so not the US, those are in the orange bars, over the last 10 years, almost all had at least one matching domestic discard option, so those are the gray blocks. This raises the question as to why the waste was sent internationally when it appears as though it could have been dealt with domestically. The exception is thallium, which is in the yellow dotted line, which was only handled internationally for a few years. Most of these transfers were for recycling, so those are circled by the red dotted line. This means they may meet the Basel Convention exemption of being needed as raw material for recycling and recovery industries by the importing nation, and this is a valid reason to send waste internationally, but further verification is needed and beyond scope here. There were also 2 instances of potential Basel noncompliance found for lead and zinc disposals to landfill, and those are in the blue dotted line. In both cases, because as disposals, they don't qualify for the Basel recycling exception, and because landfill options were also apparently available in Canada, the justification for international transfer is questionable, but further verification is warranted and beyond scope. But it just goes to show what types of perspectives the NPRI transfers and disposals data can bring to SDG analysis, and shows that the Basel Convention aims may not be as fully on track as the official indicator suggests. Finally, part 2B of this work, further case studies were done, this time focusing on how the NPRI and other PRTRs could provide insights into human and ecosystem health issues, and the related topic of understanding the impacts of various waste management practices and looking for shifts towards preferred waste management practices. I don't have time to present these results today, but I am mentioning it as a bit of a tease, and suffice it to say that there is a gap within current risk estimation models to comprehensively account for the human and eco impacts of pollutants going to various on-site and off-site waste handling methods, and that advances to fill these gaps are needed to enable a more accurate view of these waste management types. So to conclude, the goal of this work was to raise awareness of NPRI transfer and disposal data and to showcase its usefulness in SDG 12 indicators. The results show that despite the official indicators suggesting Canada's 100% achievement of SDG 12 aims, NPRI data show a different perspective. Results also show that there are gaps in current impact assessment models that need to be filled before we can move more accurately understanding whether human or eco impact reductions are being achieved. Nonetheless, NPRI and other PRTRs can complement existing official indicators and show these more detailed stories and better guide decision making to correct course. Thank you.
sorry for delay. Thank you, Mr. Pascal. Now is Jindrich, please, it's your presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jindrich Petrulik. Next slide, please. Working with Arnica Association, which is a Czech-based civil society organization. Also, we work internationally on different projects in some countries. Here you can see, for example, a picture from Armenia, where we collected samples and analyzed them for POPs. Next slide. At the same time, I'm an expert on dioxin and POPs waste with International Pollutants Elimination Network, which is a network of more than 620 civil society organizations from more than 125 countries globally. Next. And within this network, we established quite good cooperation with civil society organizations, including Indonesia, where we had a joint project supported by European Union focused on promoting PRTR in Indonesia. And as part of this project, we were able to put together this report, which is rather like guidance for civil society organizations in promotion of pollutant release and transfer registers. And my presentation will be based on some parts of this report or guidance. Next. Next. We found out that from the point of view of civil society organizations, we see some crucial elements of PRTR for civil society. It has to be reported periodically every year. Then facilities should specific report. There should be available specific reports by facility, not summaries per, for example, agency or region and so on. All releases and transfers should be chemically specific reported, including transfers in wastes. The reporting about total amount of waste doesn't provide enough information, and I will focus specifically on this area further in my presentation. And of course, it is important that the data are available on public domain. Next. If we look at the waste, such as this picture, are waste incineration residues, like both fly ash and bottom ash, there is difference between knowing total volume of the waste and knowing what is in the waste. So what are real data for this heap of fly ash and bottom ash? This is a specific example, not the picture, but the data for the waste incineration residues from one waste incinerator in the Czech Republic. Next. We looked specifically on flows of dioxins and some other POPs in fly ash from waste incineration residues, and we published that in the report Toxic Ash Poisons, Our Food Chain in 2017. And next, and we found out that unfortunately, fly ash from waste incinerators, which contains significant levels of dioxins, is suggested to be used for roads and sidewalks. Next. Construction products such as cement or for cover layer at municipal landfills, where dioxins can still be discharged into the environment. In some countries, it is promoted to be used for embankments. This is example of using ash containing dioxins in Indonesia, or even as a improvement for soil. Next. So also to use it in agriculture. Next. This is the example how free-range chicken eggs can be contaminated with dioxin when the waste is not handled properly. This is abandoned waste incinerator in Accra, and the levels of dioxin found in the ash and then in free-range chicken eggs. Next. We tried to calculate the scope of potential risk created by dioxins in fly ashes from waste incinerators, and for this calculation we used data available for waste incinerators in the Czech Republic, which is quite rare because we have accessible data on total amount of dioxins transferred in waste by each waste incinerator in the Czech Republic, and we found out that these amounts were underestimated in some European Union reports looking at the dioxins in the flow from waste incinerators in waste incineration residues. Next. We tried to calculate what is total amount of dioxin which is going to be out of the control internationally or globally, and with the help of some data used from PRTR in Czech Republic or Japan, we got also to the total amount globally. Next, please. And we found out that the amount of dioxins in fly ash suggested to be not really properly controlled is equal to the amount of dioxin which is suggested limit value or level for the population of 133 planets Earth. So we can see that this is quite good example when some chemical and improper waste management contributes significantly to the breaching of planetary boundaries. So this is quite good example of where we don't follow what's part of triple planetary crisis, and we believe that PRTR systems in many countries fail to follow this important flow of chemicals like dioxins, but I will give you more examples next. Next, please. It can be case of also of cyanides in wastes. Next. Cyanide quite often leads through leakage into the waters to poisoning long parts of the rivers. This is example from the Czech Republic, and we use this case to push for stricter threshold for cyanides reporting for reporting on cyanides in waste transfers. Next. Cyanides in waste were also in this hazardous waste landfill, which exchanged into the kind of acid lake. Next. In general, PRTR should be or can be used for reporting to international conventions. You can see that specifically chemically reporting on mercury in waste leads to quite interesting data which shows that the transfers of mercury in waste in the Czech Republic, for example, were much higher than the total amount of mercury released into the air, and especially in a time when we phase out using mercury in chloralkali plants. This is a very important flow to follow next. Another example can be arsenic. Next, through the data in the Czech PRTR, we found out that fly ash from coal-burning power plants are a very significant source of arsenic. Next, and by using this data, we were able to prevent damage of wetland with all these endangered species by using fly ash from brown coal burning power plant. Next. Another important aspect is how the reporting thresholds are set up. Next, we see that next, and maybe next one, we see that the setting obligation to report based on release quantity thresholds is best, because when you add some limits for manufacture, processing and use thresholds, or thresholds for specific activities, you decrease number of facilities obliged to report, which is quite visible on again on example from the Czech Republic. So there is difference between these two approaches between 2015 and 2016. So you can see the amount of the facilities who were obliged to report into the PRTR system. So we suggest to establish the system based just on the threshold set up for release of specific chemicals. Next. For developing countries, we had a project in Indonesia. The challenge is how to report data about small and medium-sized enterprises. Next. And maybe next. In Indonesia, there are examples of small enterprises like this one. It is a chalk production in one of the villages, and if there are several such facilities, there are, for example, 30 in this village. In Karawang, and it releases high amounts of dioxin, what we proved by collecting samples and analysis for dioxins and other POPs. So it is very important challenge, and the Japanese PRTR system shows some potential way forward for the countries in Southeast Asia, how to set up the rules for reporting about these polluting activities. Next. So I come back to the report, or guidelines, which includes much more examples and much more analysis. And of course, in this presentation, I couldn't talk about all of them. I brought some copies printed here, but you can download it on our website or ResearchGate. Thank you very much.
Thank you for a report on important work you and your colleagues do in the field of toxic chemicals. Now we are opening the floor for questions from the floor, and I would, if I could take the possibility to ask the first question, first to Pascal, if he could maybe help me with some, I think it's basic questions for a guy from Europe. Europe follows waste transfer with use of waste codes, which is maybe right or wrong, I don't know, which somehow connect transferred waste with production, which is source of this transferred waste. But Canada, like many other countries in the world, follow waste through chemical-specific principles. You follow chemicals in the waste. I just wonder, how do you know which chemicals in the waste? You surely cannot chemically analyze every ton of waste which is transferred. How these things really works?
I may not be able to go into the details, but we have various techniques that are being used in order to make sure that we are in a position to identify the specific substance. And in Canada, we have other various regulations as well that are quite useful for us. For example, we have the it's called the cross-border movement of hazardous waste and hazardous recycling material regulations. It's quite useful for us to be able to identify the really movement of hazardous waste across international and mostly provincial borders as well. So, and but of course, it's quite complementary with the PRTRs and NPRI. So we are closely working with our colleagues to make sure that we are identifying like ways to identify the appropriate substance there.
Question for Indrich. If we see some examples of some industrial accidents which happens also in Europe, it happens all over the world, when you have some discharges of toxic chemicals. Understand we are trying as much as we could that it doesn't happen, but sometimes it happened. But when you look through your eyes, do you think that that regulations we have in Europe, if you look only normal operation of companies, is sufficient enough to protect nature from that kind of escalations you notice in your through your eyes in the world? So that ground is not full of dioxins, that PCB are not everywhere around, that POPs are deal like it should be dealt with?
If I narrow the question to PRTR related topics, I think that we in most of European countries we really forget to look at the chemicals transferred in waste, and they disappear from our attention. So in Czech Republic, for example, we realized that some metallurgical plants say that they recycle waste containing dioxins, which is prohibited according to Stockholm Convention. And there are, I know that at the European level, EU is struggling to get the data about dioxins in waste, and the PRTR is quite a good tool how to improve or how to fill this gap. And problem is that there is some opposition to go towards obligation to report dioxins in waste. Also, the companies are should be obliged to measure dioxin in waste. And if you look at the reporting to the Stockholm Convention, many EU member states failed to report about dioxin in waste. Also, it's the obligation under Stockholm Convention, which doesn't follow only releases to air or water, but it follows also the transfers of dioxins in waste. And if you look at some cases, it creates a space for kind of illegal transfers of waste, like waste incineration, fly ash, to declare it as a kind of product, like I don't know, some kind of refilling material for reclamation of land and so on, and export it to countries to farther east, to Eastern Europe. What was the case which we have shown in one of the reports I mentioned here, on focused on waste incineration fly ash. But this is one of the specific cases, but we could see much more hidden potential risks if we will step forward to chemically specific reporting on waste. And I believe it should be part of PRTR protocol as soon as possible.
The floor, do we have questions for our panelists? Yes, CC is there. The floor is yours.
Just a comment on the question that you raised on the estimating the chemical content of the specific substance. That's up to the facility to do that, to report to their PRTR. So that's what they report is not the total quantity of waste, but the amount of the substance. And they track where that substance, the medium in which that substance is. So that information is available through the reporting company. I wanted to bring up also the importance of the work that Canada is doing on cross-border transfers. We're doing that as well for the 3 countries, or cooperating with the 3 countries on that. And that is, we find as well pollutants that are, or substances, hazardous substances that are transferred to another country, that country has a PRTR system, but that a specific substance is not covered under the PRTR. And therefore, you lose the tracking of them. And it is a way for them to know that their substance list could be updated to account for the substances that are entering the country. And that's why it's important to have this type of cooperation amongst PRTR systems or countries with PRTRs to look at what is being reported going from one country to another through the PRTR systems. And I welcome any comments also from Canada or Arnica on that.
EB, I think, a second, please, Christian.
Also for what Jindrik has said in relation to the dioxin and furan issue, I mean, where the PRTR has really an added value is because under the ID requirements, so for waste incineration or cement plants in particular, the emission limit values apply for what they call normal operating conditions. But for at least the cement, but also municipal waste incineration plants, the dioxin issue is one in particular when they do startups, and the temperature window is not being met. And this is typically not controlled, I mean, this what they call OTNOC, other than normal operating conditions, is not subject to strict permitting requirements. And this is why the PRTR doesn't differentiate the emission data coming under whatever situation, OTNOC or not OTNOC. It's under what they call normal operating conditions. So this is really important, the added value of the PRTR, that we cover all, let's say, situations of emissions and not forget certain information that is not being, mandatory required. It's maybe a technical detail, but I think it's also important to, focus on those situations where those dioxins are being formed and how we can capture them before it happens. Again, the BAT link is very important. No bypass, making sure that the dust filter system bonding is prevented. I mean, this is what any municipal waste incinerator can do and should do.
Well, we have to be honest, we have to be fair to both parties. So our waste incinerators are forbidden to add waste in the oven if the temperature is not right. So I think we could trust them that they are doing by the rules. So there is no emissions from a waste incinerator regarding from gas or oil or something before the oven is not hot enough, and we are in the normal operating position. Just to be fair to both parties, not to be how to say, biased. Sorry. Any more comment from the floor? Secretariat?
You are right on regarding the BAT, but if you look at the reporting in the Czech Republic, where waste incinerators have to report also on dioxin in waste, this is mostly only flow of dioxins which is reported into the PRTR, and it clearly shows that nowadays from modern waste incinerators the transfer in waste is a very important route for potential contamination of the environment, which we have shown also on examples when such waste is not properly handled, and when it can enter or contaminate the environment. And by reducing the levels for dioxins in food by EFSA, many European countries will not meet these requirements, and unfollowed transfer of dioxins in waste is a very important gap. Also, I don't disagree with you that other than normal operating conditions are not important as well. Some other studies which we have done, especially with Toxicowatch in Netherlands, highlight that. On the other hand, missing reporting on on dioxins in waste transfers and also other POPs as well as heavy metals is really a significant loophole in many European countries' PRTRs. And because I gave the examples from the Czech Republic, I don't want to create an image of blaming Czech Republic for doing something wrong. It's the opposite. I think that the Czech PRTR should serve as example for reporting on waste, because it shows very important flows of chemicals into the environment. And I'm sorry for taking the floor again, but I think it's very, very important topic.
I think now we have Secretariat.
Yes, thank you very much for both very interesting presentations. This is a comment to, more like a comment to Pascal. And the teaser in the presentation by Alicia about the insights to human and ecosystem impacts, I think that very well connects to other presentations we heard today about the GFC and the indicators that need to be developed, that need to transport information in an easy way, but that can also be drilled down into more detail. So I was wondering if maybe today we can't learn much more about this work, but if you have any comments on this, please let us know. If not, I'm very interested to see how that work goes in the future, and maybe also a possibility to actually connect to GFC colleagues that are working on the environmental burden work and try to understand how this environmental burden could be measured or fed with information. Yes, that's my comment.
Thank you for your questions. So Alicia Berthiaume, our researcher, has just been publishing in Communication, Earth and Environment, an article on overcoming challenges, measuring SDG 12 progress using national register to track chemical and waste. So I think these are kind of the teasers that I think she was mentioning, and we'd be happy to share. And if anyone is interested, you can contact as well her if you want. So I think, and she has been quite actively working on that topic, and she's quite passionate as well. So we'll be happy to see other articles in the near future as well.
It looks like we are a little bit tired, and we have asked what everything we are interested in. I would like to thank our excellent panelists, and thanks all of you. And I think with this we could finish today's work, and we will continue tomorrow at same hours, same place. Now we know where coffee is, know where the toilet is, so we will just enjoy. Thank you, and good night.